So welcome everyone. I see people are coming on in. Um, you just heard the voice and see the face of Bill Way, the mod director. So he's always doing him and his team are always doing some wonderful things in the community. You don't get to really see him on live like that, so very cool. Um, and then what I'm gonna do. Oh, let me tell you who I am. So my name is K. Patrice Williams. I'm Councilwoman K. Patrice Williams, and my district is Cordelia and Green Valley. And we're going to be talking about Lopes Road today. And Lopes Road is a very popular subject on Next Door. I'm really proud of Public Works and this team because they keep this really great website. Anytime anyone is asking about, the updates on Lopes Road, I'm able to go to this link and see go to this link and see what is going on with Lopes Road. And I thought that was enough. And then Daniel, a neighbor in Cordelia, said, "Hey, Patrice, that's not enough. We have questions and we have these great ideas and we want to know and we want to interact." And so today was derived from that. So what I'm going to do is introduce Public Works Director Sanjay for him to introduce the team and to also, I know that there's going to be a presentation, and then we're going to open it up and facilitate a dialogue.
Yeah, thank you, Councilwoman. And here we have with us Jason Riley, Assistant City Engineer, and our Assistant Public Works Director Utility, Michael Heather, who actually both of them are heading this project from the beginning. So I came into this, just recently. So they have most of the knowledge and they will help answer most of your questions. And Bill Way would be moderating this webinar. Thank you. Jason, you can take it
Yes, with that, I'll go ahead and jump in. Just bear with me. I'm going to share my screen as Councilmember Williams indicated. We have about a 10-minute presentation, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions. Let me put this into presentation mode. All right, so. Okay, are you able to see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes, okay, very good. I need to figure out how to get my notes now. Okay, we're good. All right, so good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us to discuss the Lopes Road and Water Pipeline Reconstruction Project. My name is Jason Riley. I'm the Assistant City Engineer here with Fairfield Public Works and also the city's project manager for this project. So tonight we have a brief presentation and we'll share that with you and then open it up for any questions. And as Bill Way indicated, if you have any questions, raise your hand. We'll either get to them on the slides or at the end when the conclusion of the presentation. So a little background, I think most of you are aware during the winter of 2023, there were, our area experienced above average rainfall, which included several major high intensity and long duration storms in the months of February and March. Those storms saturated the soils and a land mass, as you see in this aerial picture, slid east towards Interstate 680. The slide has a variable depth from about 23 to 35 feet deep, and it has moved horizontally approximately 12 feet. In addition, mud flowed across Lopes Road and into the southbound lanes of Interstate 680. As it did that, it moved the road significantly, and as well as damaged or destroyed underground utilities in that area. Our observations of the area indicate that the slide continues to move. However, it has been noticeably slowing in its movement over the last 2 years. So this map taken from Google Earth is the location. It's kind of hard to look at, but the yellow line that kind of snakes through the middle of the slide is Interstate 680. And Lopes Road runs parallel to 680 on the west side of the interstate. The northern Cloverleaf interchange is Gold Hill. And then the southern, at the bottom of the slide, is Marshview. So the project location is approximately halfway between those two interchanges. So the yellow pin on the slide represents the actual project location and a little outline of the landslide area. And then the green pins represent our water facilities that are in the area that include the water pump station on the north end, and then to the southwest is the Fairfield Water Reservoir. So there is a 30-inch potable water line that runs through the slide area from the pump station to the reservoir. So this is just a more zoomed in of the same aerial, and we can use this to reference during the question and answer period if this might be helpful for for your questions to point to certain things. So as far as the damage summary, Fairfield and Benicia both have facilities in that area. Fairfield, the entire project is within the city of Fairfield city limits. So therefore, we are leading the project, but we have damage to the roadway, the Lopes Road itself. We have that 30-inch potable water line in the area that runs through the pump from the pump station to the reservoir. And then as you can see in the image on the left here, you can see that 30-inch water line has been severed. And this photo was taken as part of our discovery. At the top of that photo, you'll see 3 conduits, and those conduits run communications and electrical between the pump station and the reservoir, and those were also destroyed. During the event, when the wiring was pulled out, it also did damage to the pump station with the breaker and electrical systems and communication systems in the pump station. City of Benicia has a 36-inch raw water line that it's the primary water source for the entire city of Benicia, and that runs adjacent to Lopes Road. It suffered similar damage. When that was damaged, just after the events, the city of Benicia installed these. If you look at the photo on the top right, you'll see 2 12-inch HDPE plastic pipes, and those are in the street where the roadway used to be. There's also 2 further up the hill, and that's what is bypassing the landslide area to deliver water to the city of Benicia. So there was a long period of time that the city of Benicia was on water conservation, and they had an alternative water source that had limited capacity. So these are very crucial water lines serving the city. And then we have shared damage, which is actually trying to stabilize and repair the slope itself. So as far as project coordination, there are several agencies, federal, state, county, and local, that are involved in this project, City of Fairfield and the City of Benicia. And we've been meeting these two agencies have been meeting biweekly pretty much since the project was initiated. And then we've been inviting these other federal, state, and local agencies, FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, the Federal Highway Administration, California Office of Emergency Service, CalES, Solano County Office of Emergency Service, as well as Caltrans. And Caltrans administers the federal funding for FHWA. So most of the questions we've received for this project are related to the road closure itself. Lopes has been closed, as many of you know, since March of 2023. We understand the public inconvenience that this does cause. The roadway has remained closed for several reasons. The section of temporary rock road that was placed adjacent to the pipes, and I don't know if you can see my cursor, but there's a small area along the slide that's been placed for maintenance and security, has continued to experience sinkholes that are 2 to 3 feet deep as the soil consolidates. The temporary water bypass lines also take up a majority of the roadway width, with insufficient width for public traffic to pass near the Caltrans sheet pile wall, which is a wall that Caltrans installed just after the event to protect the soil from again impacting Interstate 680. So this sheet pile wall, which are panels, they're steel panels that are driven into the ground. I think this is approximately 300 feet in length. That sheet pile wall does not provide any protection. There's no guardrail along the edge of the roadway between Lopes Road and Interstate 680. And the Lopes Road is approximately 20 feet higher than 680. So there's some, it's just not safe to be driving along that section. Lastly, the plastic water pipes for the city of Benicia water bypass are susceptible to damage and need to be protected in order to preserve the health and safety of the Benicia residents. Benicia has contracted with a 24-hour security company to assist with keeping eyes on that area as well. We have barricades at the intersections, and then we have barricades closer, construction type barricades closer to the work. But we were finding that people were still trying to get through, bicycles, pedestrians, that kind of thing. So we have fenced the area off to make it more secure in this, and it's got locked gates for emergency access. Let's see. Project administration. So early on, following the event, the cities of Fairfield and Benicia entered into a memorandum of understanding that outlines the responsibilities for each of the agencies. The city of Fairfield is the lead agency since it's within our city limits, and for both the design and the construction of the project. Costs for design and construction are borne by the agency for their portions of their work, and then each agency is responsible for seeking their own reimbursements from either FEMA, FHWA, Cal OES, other agencies, granting agencies. So for project status, it's very important to keep in mind that the public assistance funding that is available from FEMA and FHWA is only reimbursable for to reconstruct infrastructure that was already in place and exactly as it was existed at the time of the damage. In August of last year, it was determined that the roadway portion of the work itself, was not eligible for FEMA funding. However, it is eligible for FHWA funding, and that's why we now have a second federal agency involved in the project. The original FEMA cost estimate for the project was $720,000. That was their estimate of the work was $720,000. Over the last year and a half, we've developed plans and cost estimates that are in the around $2.1 million, and we provided that justification to FEMA for consideration. And just recently, I believe in May or June, FEMA has agreed and updated our eligibility for the water component of the work. The other part that remains an issue that we haven't secured the funding for is the slope stabilization. And FEMA has determined in January of this year that work to stabilize a slope is not eligible for FEMA funding. And our design team adamantly disagrees. We think it's necessary for, even during construction of the water lines, it's necessary for worker safety that'll be in these 10-foot deep trenches with hundreds of thousands of cubic yards of soil that's still moving above them. And we don't feel like there's any level of shoring that would protect them in that case. So we are still pushing to stabilize the slope and get that FEMA funded. We've also submitted, because it's been deemed ineligible at this point, and we're appealing, we've submitted that to FHWA for consideration as protection of the roadway. So the project plans and specifications are nearing 100% complete. The only outstanding item is what form of slope stabilization we will be including with the project. So this chart provides the preliminary cost estimates between the two agencies broken down by the different types of work. You'll see that with the roadway construction, the potable water line, slope stabilization, and then our share of the soft costs, which are construction management and design. The city of Fairfield's share is $7.7 million at this point. And the city of Benicia, their 36-inch raw water line the slope stabilization and mitigation, and then their design and soft costs. Their total is approximately $3.8 million. So that's a total project cost of $11.5 million. So I guess we'll go back real quick. So one of the important things is that the potential loss of funding if we were to advance this project ahead of getting obligated by FEMA would be this full amount. And so that's a very large risk to proceed prior to any approvals by FHWA and FEMA. Oops. The next step is we need to resolve the federal funding for the slope stabilization. We're hoping that that can be resolved in September of this year. The recommended solution is deep soil mixing, and that includes drilling into the soil, injecting a cement slurry mixture that'll seep into the soil at 7.5, maybe it's too detailed, but 7.5 foot intervals, 2 rows offset to form a wall so that it'll increase the soil bearing capacity of that soil adjacent to the road and keep that from moving. That would provide the factor of safety for workers that are trenching the water lines, as well as a more permanent repair, permanent slope stabilization in the future. We'll finalize the plans and specifications December of this year, advertise and bid the project for construction in January, begin construction April of next year, and then finish construction by the end of calendar year 26. These are all contingent on getting resolution on that slope stabilization or determining an alternative solution, which might be a sheet pile wall similar to what Caltrans has installed. And whether we get local or federal funding or not, we may have to work on other grants, which we've been seeking, we've been looking at. We're trying to avoid any grant that would be further out into the future and further delay the project, but other funding sources that would be available to do that soil stabilization. So project resources, this is my contact information here. This is recorded, so you will be able to go back and look. If you want to give me a call or shoot me an email with any questions that you have, I have received some email questions that we're working on. And then we also have, as Councilmember Williams indicated, a project website. We are going to be in the next few weeks updating that website to include some of our design documents, including our latest submittal of our plans. If you wish to look at those, as well as our project report, which includes the geotechnical report and our decision making as we moved through the project. And then before we go on to any questions, I just wanted to scroll through a few other photos that might be helpful references as you're asking questions, or maybe you can refer back to certain pictures. This is again the aerial showing at this point, the guardrail was not completely moved. So this wasn't the last of the movement of the soil prior to the sheet pile wall. But it does give you a good idea of how far up the slope the actual slide mass is. Again, this is where the beams for the guardrail have been exposed, fully exposed. You can see the water and mud flow onto 680, the most heavily damaged area. Although you can see the separation in the center line, the stripe on the street here, and this damage extends about 200 feet to the south as well. Whoops. Again, just a picture from Lopes Road early on in the slide. And then later in the slide, you can see the guardrail's gone. So this photo gives you a good idea of what the 4 pipes that are serving the city of Benicia raw water, the 2 12-inch pipes up on the slope, as well as the 2 that kind of snake through Lopes Road. And you can see that gravel road there really would put vehicles, pedestrians, bicycles at risk if we were to open even 1 lane of this road at this time. And then there's a good picture of the actual sheet pile wall that Caltrans installed. And I won't go into that one yet. So if you have any questions, we're available. The team's here. I'm not sure if anybody from the city of Benicia, I can't see all the faces, but yeah, we're here to answer the questions.
So Jason, what I'd like to do is if you could click on the Q&A section first to address the questions that were submitted online during the presentation, and then we could go with any hands raised after that.
Okay, perfect. And then I'll try to do them in the order by the time there. Okay, so this slide was progressing for about 3 years with noticeable cracking and movement of the center divider line. This could have been avoided. What efforts will be made in the future to monitor this area going forward to be certain this doesn't happen again? Yes, that's a great point. And that's one of the reasons that FEMA is questioning whether our slope stability is there. Is should you have known that early on, I mean, like not the same year, but prior to that this was moving. And we did not, at least in the engineering department of public works, we were not aware that that was actually moving. We are, as I mentioned, the slope stabilization mitigation method that we're proposing will handle. It has a high factor of safety, and it significantly increases the protection of the road as well as the water pipes. And we are planning to install inclinometers up in the slope to monitor that regularly to avoid the same issue.
Jason, did we cover Lopes? Lopes Road wasn't always a city road, and that's not to like this, agency quandary where we finger point, but Lopes Road traditionally wasn't always a city road. It actually used to be a county road, right? So, but usually when cities take over roads, there's no discovery of like who knows what, right? You redraw lines, and agency takes jurisdiction over certain roads. So it wasn't, in my mind, the city would have never known at the time that something was moving.
At least for sure, not to the extent that it actually was up on the top of the slope. Next question is, all of South Cordelia has one way out of the area, which could be disastrous in a wildfire event. What is the evacuation plan should the intersection of Lopes and Gold Hill become blocked or impassable? So that is a question that I received by email as well, and we are looking into that. So I'm going to try to set up a meeting with our fire department and police department and see get their input and feedback on what the evacuation plan will be. So that'll be one that we actually follow up post meeting tonight. Did FEMA say why it was not eligible? So in FEMA's mind, what they told us is that we should have known it was moving, and soil everywhere is moving. So in this particular spot, we didn't know it was moving to the extent that it was. And I think that what we did was a geotechnical report and soils report that actually researched and went back and looked at old historic photos, and they could start to see where there was evidence that it was moving. But this slide is actually within a much larger slide that actually goes under 680 and into the marsh. So it really, in our minds, we wouldn't have known without having done that research and done that level, and we don't typically do that for every slope within the city or county. So yeah, that was their justification. Our justification is not so much that we need to protect the slope just for the road and the long-term safety, but even to put the water lines back in as part of the construction safety of the workers. So that's our justification at this time. Anything else?
Just a question. When we're doing our design, we are going to be installing inclinometers and other methods to just monitor this slope movement?
Yes, and we have. We did that early on after the slide. Those inclinometer casings have both severed. So we thought we were going to be in construction in the spring, so we didn't replace those. Now that we've had, one thing I do want to point out is our FEMA team, up until January, was a consistent team and agreed. We were working with them on our slope stabilization, and they were in agreement with us. We thought we were at the finish line in January. We had plans to go out for construction in the spring. The FEMA team changed in January, February. And they immediately came in and said, no, your slope stabilization. They had a whole different opinion on the slope stabilization and hadn't even yet read all of our documents, seen all of our design. So it was very disappointing. And since then, we've had our team change 2 other times. So we've had 4 FEMA teams since January. And so we're trying to get some consistency. Each time we get a new team, we're having to educate them, have them read through all of our documents, supply them all the documents, and get them up to speed on the project, which is a fairly complex project. So we're hopeful that this next team is going to give us an answer that we can live with. Is there a way our community can help put weight behind the appeal? Michael, Heather, I think you're probably the most experienced with FEMA. Oh, well, before you start, I did get a call from Solano OES today, and we are putting together a meeting, and they have some other connections that we're going to explore. Cal OES that work regularly with FEMA. We've talked to them in the past, but really haven't gotten very far. But at this time, we think we have some other contacts that we'll be able to work with to put additional pressure on. Michael, are you familiar with any other public pressure?
Yeah, I mean, as far as while it might be thoughtful of calling the local elected, this is at the staff level and federal and state government, and trying to maintain good relationships among staff between the recipients, ultimately the city, the state, and FEMA. These reviews that do go through FEMA, in every other FEMA event I've worked on, and here and different agencies, while they do generally take 18 months to 2 years, I am shocked at why we've had such turnover at the federal level of new teams, because it's not very effective or efficient. That being said, if it's people's right to call up Mr. Garmini's office, I'm not advocating to do or don't, but generally these efforts are carried out at the staff level.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. This might be sort of a repeat question. What was the specific reason FEMA said the project was ineligible? They didn't say that the full project was ineligible. The water line portion of the work they have agreed to, which is approximately $2.1 million. It's the slope stabilization, which is about $2.3 million that they have deemed ineligible. And then the roadway is not. The road itself is labeled or classified as a minor arterial, and because of that classification, it actually is an FHWA roadway, not a FEMA eligible roadway. So I hope that answers that question. Who owns all the land where the slide occurred? This is another question that it's related to a question we received by email. I believe the land is owned by Discovery Builders. I'm not sure as far as what developability there is, and that's something that we're investigating now. And there may be more to your question here that you want to ask. Next question: will the Benicia water line be repaired first, and will there be advanced funding to take care of this first? Where will that funding come from? So the funding right now for both water lines is approved but not obligated, meaning they've agreed that they're going to reimburse for both City of Fairfield and City of Benicia water lines. But they're both contingent on the slope stabilization and whether we're going to continue to push for funding for the slope stabilization. So without some form of slope stabilization, in order to have adequate worker safety, we cannot build either of the water lines. So the plan right now is to have both water lines placed, and I didn't mention maybe both water lines are going to be under the road. So currently, the City of Fairfield line is in the roadway. It's protected underneath the road. The City of Benicia is just outside of the roadway, the paved road surface. Now they're both going to be within the roadway. So they will both be constructed at the same time. Okay. Why is the sheet pile option an alternative solution rather than the recommended solution? That's a great question. Caltrans was able to mobilize a pile drilling contractor and install a sheet pile wall in a matter of days. Yeah, very common question. So as far as the timing of the sheet pile wall going in, the state has different emergency funding pots that they are able to draw from, and they have different connections to the federal government. So they go through a different process than we go through as far as public assistance. So, you know, if you can imagine, they've got projects all over the state. As a matter of fact, when we contacted them about this location, they put us on a list. They were doing sheet piles in San Jose or in Santa Cruz County. They were doing them all over. The reason that the sheet pile wall is an alternative solution rather than the recommended solution, it does provide the worker safety, but it does not provide the same factor of safety over a long period of time that the deep soil mixing provides. So we've included that. The cost is not drastically cheaper for the sheet pile wall than it is for the deep soil mixing that's proposed. Are there plans to turn Lopes Road back into a county road? So I'm not aware. This is another one we will note as maybe something we follow up after the meeting. I'm not aware of any plans to turn Lopes Road back into a county road. Why has design taken 2+ years and still isn't completed? Please elaborate on the time frame that the city put out on an RFP and engaged with the engineers. So the design itself has not taken 2+ years. We hired the consultant, I believe, in March of 2024. And the reason what was happening between 2023, March of 23 and March of 2024 was meeting with FEMA and Cal OES to do inspections at the site, and do what they call an initial damage assessment, so that they could do those groups could do their calculations on what the cost might be. After that, which by the way, we couldn't do any of that until June because Solano County was added to the county or the state's declaration of emergency in June, on June 8th of 2023. So we couldn't even engage with FEMA or Cal OES until it was part of the actual declaration. So after we met and had in the summer of 23, we had our initial damage assessments. We did our inspection walks, met with FEMA several times, filled out all the appropriate forms. Then we started working with the city of Fairfield, started working with the city of Benicia on a memorandum of understanding to outline the responsibilities of each agency. We were working with FEMA to see if they were even open to us doing a single project with two different agencies. There was a lot of work on that. And then we put out the RFP, I believe in January of 24, and we awarded the contract in March of 24. The design team has not been working on that design for that since then. It's been on and off, starts and stops as we present things and submit things to FEMA for review to see if they're acceptable. Different formats of cost estimates. So it hasn't taken 1.5 years, 2 years to design the project. It's taken that long to get through the government processes. Anything you want to add to that, Michael?
No, usually in the fog of war, when there's a chain of command when you work with emergency services, so we don't work directly with FEMA right away. Generally, you work through that local, the county, through the Cal OES state, and then the feds. And generally, you spend some time going through discovery, just try to figure out what's damage, and then you filter that over through the county and then onto the state. So, having said all that, that's normally what takes time, usually within the first 3 months after the disaster is declared and agencies are kind of moving through the response part of the emergency.
So the next question, I'm from the Pacific Flyway Center. I can offer that in an emergency, we would allow access on Ramsey Road for one-way evacuations of Veronica Cornett. Appreciate that. That's a great comment. I think that's part of why we're here. working together to solve problems and get that information out there. So we'll include that as part of our discussions with the fire and police department. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks, Veronica.
Will Marshview be affected by this project at all, or are there plans to protect Marshview to make sure that whatever happened to Lopes Road to cause it to have to be closed, that Marshview doesn't have to be closed? We're not anticipating that during any portion of the construction or there should be no impacts to Marshview. The only impacts to Marshview would be traffic control signs that's basically indicating that Lopes Road is closed. Discovery Builders is CNO. Great comment. Thank you. If funding continues to be an issue, has there been discussions of providing us with a separate exit entrance to our community? If so, what does that look like? Providing a separate exit. So this gets back to the evacuation, I'm assuming, evacuation routes. And that's a great comment. That's something we've heard recently through email. And as I mentioned, we're going to be scheduling something with our fire department and police department to help us with determining what that might look like. Will the project start in April 2026 with or without federal funding? So that's a decision. That's a policy level decision. So I think what we're going to recommend is that we get this project moving next spring. Without federal funding, it would be difficult. We'd have to identify obviously local funding or some other grant source. But we will be working with council and Councilmember K, Patrice Williams, and trying to identify what our options would look like, what would be in jeopardy, what the risk would be, and then how much we would be looking at as far as local funding. Can our community put a halt to future developments until we have another working exit entrance into our neighborhoods? Why is the developer not required to provide another entrance exit to the East Bay? That's a larger question. I appreciate the question. So we will note that, and we'll do our best to respond to that after the meeting. I'm not exactly sure what is meant by provide another entrance and exit to the East Bay, but we'll take a stab at getting a response to that question. Thank you.
Hey, Jason, just real quick, I would like to just interject with a couple of the chat questions before we continue on with the Q&A.
Sure.
Okay. This is from Repreet. This road faces my master bedroom. The light that is on in the evening faces my bedroom window, and even with the shutters closed, light gets in. Is it possible to turn the light around so it doesn't face the homes in Cordelia? Also, I could see people walking on the road and biking. At the Gold Hill Lopes Cross, there are teenagers that consistently do wheelies even in the day. There are so many safety issues that FEMA doesn't know about. Lastly, there was a high-speed chase that happened and my neighbor was walking on that road. If the road was functional, then no one would be walking or biking there.
Yeah, so I'll try to remember what the very first question was. So regarding the lighting, that's a great comment. Appreciate that. I don't see any reason why we can't look at where that light is aiming. We do need to make sure that that it's lit between the gates at both ends, but we will work with the City of Benicia and the security staff that are on site and see if we can get that light fixture turned and named away.
Yeah, Jason, I think maybe Repreet. I'll put my email in the chat box there, and you email me your address. We can go out there and figure out what direction needs to be pointed.
Yeah.
That's easy.
There
Definitely.
may be shields that we can put on the fixture itself to shield the houses.
And we have one more from Christopher. So if we never get cleared for federal funding, then we will never get a road?
Well, that's a tough question to answer. We have been approved for the water lines for both City of Benicia and City of Fairfield. So I think worst case scenario at this point is that we would proceed, probably need to build a sheet pile wall similar to the Caltrans wall for worker safety, and that would have to be locally funded. And then also we would need to secure the federal grant for FHWA funds for the roadway itself. So I don't think that there's risk that the roadway itself won't be put back into place. It just might require additional local funding between the two agencies. And you had a couple of other questions in the chat that you read off, and I didn't get them all.
Mainly was the concern with people walking and or biking.
Yeah.
And also with there was a car chase,
okay.
A high-speed chase that happened in the neighborhood, was walking on the road, and if a neighbor was walking on the road, if the road was functional, then no one would be walking or biking there.
Yeah, so as far as the pedestrian traffic, there are still pedestrians out there. We do get notifications from Benicia occasionally that the security has been monitoring pedestrians in the area, mostly to protect the water lines. In order to get around this project, the pedestrians have to go up the slope and into private property. So we can't avoid, we can't. I guess it's a very hard to enforce the no pedestrians out there, but we do definitely need to keep them away from the most dangerous portion of it, which is where there's no guardrail and there's a 20-foot drop off to 680, as well as the protection of the health and safety of the Benicia water lines. And then back to the car chase, the car that was driven through the two gates, it actually went completely through the project site. And the question regarding how much did that cost? Well, the fence, the original gates that were put in were actually have been submitted to FEMA for reimbursements as part of a different part of this project. So there's an early part, which is to get things cleaned up. And then there's a later part, which is where we're doing the permanent repair. So as part of the original, we did submit for reimbursement for the fencing gates, and it's going through the motions right now, and it seems to have been approved. The car that actually went through the site was stolen. So there is no tracking down the driver. I guess the driver was not found, from what I understand from the city of Benicia. So we don't have a way to claim that. However, we do know what the costs were. I think the costs were approximately $10,000 for the repair. And we will submit that as well to FEMA.
Okay, that was all I had for chat, so we can go to Q&A.
Okay. Can our community put a halt to future developments until we have another working entrance? Okay, I think we already dealt with this one. We will follow up on this question. And if you have three-stage lighting, if you have more information on what you mean by connection to the East Bay, if you can just elaborate on that. Heather, sounds like an unnecessarily complex process. Who can we hold accountable for seeing results moving forward? It's a very difficult question, and we wish we knew. We are at the point where I think we're going to approach, if we don't get resolution in September, we'll be giving options to the city council and possibly submitting letters to our congressman. I moved here almost 4 years ago. One day I felt out of public safety concerns that I need to report that mudslide in the road cleavage early on, as it kept getting wider and wider day after day, with many people complaining about the closure that is prolonged very unreasonably after promises of reopening the road in October 24. I felt very bad about that. Would this prevent me from reporting public safety concerns in the future? Simply no, but this joke has to end. And we agree with you. I mean, this is a very frustrating process that we're in. And we understand the public inconvenience that this is causing, and we are working very, very hard with these outside organizations to try to get this completed as soon as possible. Unfortunately, Ramsey doesn't help those of us that are closer to Marshview Road. Yeah, so I think this gets back to the evacuation plan. And we will appreciate the comment. We'll make sure we address that as part of our discussions with fire and police departments. Walk us through the process if FEMA keeps denying the application. At what point will Fairfield and Benicia just move forward with the project absence of federal funding? Residents are traveling miles out of their way daily, wasting money and time with seemingly no end in sight. So I think back when I was talking about, excuse me, next steps, we are trying to get resolution on this by the end of September. And I think talking with our team that is kind of our drop dead. If we don't know, if we don't hear back with some positive results from FEMA by the end of September, then we are going to present other options to City Council for us to give us direction to move in different ways. And I imagine that Benicia will do the same. I know some third world countries who can construct 1,000 miles high quality and super duty road and highways in a matter of months, while we cannot fix a 1.5 mile road in 3 years. Appreciate the comment. Again, if this was a city project that we had full control of, this would have been done probably a 1.5 years ago, been constructed. So there is a process. We need to follow that process. Otherwise, we have potentially $10+ million in jeopardy. And so it comes down to a policy decision on how much we want to locally fund this project to get it moving. Are there plans for off-ramps on the 680 to Lopes and Ramsey between Marshview and Gold Hill for evacuation purposes? Great question or comment, and we'll keep that and consider that as part of the evacuation plan. For some of us in the Southbrook development, we bought our homes due to the accessibility from Marshview Road. Now we do not have that as an option. This is what we are asking. We need access from the Benicia side. This is what we're asking. We need access from the Benicia side. So I'm not sure exactly what's meant by we need access from the Benicia side, but we are trying to get the roadway back open. The Lopes, that segment that's closed, that is not going to stay closed forever, although it does seem like it has been closed forever. It is going to be reopening. There's no plans to completely close that road. Suggestion: Marshview should be extended west to Columbus Parkway for an alternative route to Lopes. It's a great comment. That section of Marshview Road is within the Solano County's jurisdiction, so we will pass that information on. Again, it comes down to money. That's very hilly terrain there, but definitely we'll pass that on. When can Lopes Road be expected to be reopened? So the end date for this project, I think we've given 3 different, and it was based on 3 different time periods that we were working on the project. We hoped that it would be open until 2 years ago or a 1.5 years ago. Then we got into the process, and there was delays from the process itself. So I think we were indicating we were going to go to construction this spring. And as of January, we thought that we were at the last hurdle and we were ready to ink, the papers and get this project out to bid, until we got slammed with basically an ineligibility from FEMA on the slope stabilization. So that's put us behind about 6 months, and we're going to work towards getting that resolution by the end of this year. Does the city have zero funding for emergency repairs? No, we do have funding for emergency repairs. It's just a matter of if there's funding available for emergencies from the federal government, do we say we're not going to accept that funding? Now, how long we go before we decide, we need to just get this project built and take that risk, that's a policy decision that will need to be made by City Council. Who exactly is deciding on whether the policy is going to be approved for local funding? If every single one of those individuals has to drive 2 miles out of their way every single day from now until it resolves, that would be a nice gesture of solidarity and may help to get the policymakers to sympathize with the locals. Appreciate the comment, and we'll make sure to pass that comment on. Why can't Benicia and Fairfield have Solano County pay for this? This project site is completely within the city of Fairfield and only impacts infrastructure for the city of Fairfield and the city of Benicia. So Solano County isn't party to the public assistance for this infrastructure repair. Ask for reimbursement from feds, fix it now, thanks. Thank you for the comments. Comment, here are potential examples of landowner accountability. Example scenarios where the landowner can be held accountable. Failure to maintain, unknown risks ignored, discovery tested those hills 78 years ago to determine if development could happen. It was determined it could not. Seems to be knowledge by the landowner that the hills are unstable. Thank you for that information. We will look into that further. Appreciate it. If Discovery Homes Casino owns a portion of the area in question, will they contribute to repairing the road and other repairs? So the city of Fairfield's right-of-way actually extends a little ways, not completely covering the slide area, but a little ways up the slope. So the area that we are protecting it's kind of like what Caltrans has done. They've done a sheet pile wall on their property line, basically, to protect their infrastructure. The next step is for the city of Fairfield and Benicia to do that and go up the hill a little ways and protect the infrastructure between Caltrans and the private property. So if there was slide that was above that came down, then we would entertain whether there was responsibility or participation from the landowner. I think the last comment signing examples of landowner calibrated AI generated. Appreciate it.
Bill, did we go over the chat? There's a couple others. I was just going to make sure we cover the chat as well.
There was a statement. There was a question. Is the California bullet train going to be completed before Lopes Road? That was the question.
Unfortunately, we don't have the California bullet train people here to answer that.
Looks like we have another Heather from Q&A.
Okay. Why isn't seeking reimbursement from feds an option? We have to fix it either way. We want feds to pay if they will. Doesn't matter if the money comes now or whenever they decide to approve it. So the way the process works is we submit our cost estimates and what infrastructure is included in those cost estimates to FEMA and FHWA, and then they agree whether the work is eligible or ineligible. So if we were to proceed and just do the project and then seek reimbursement, we would be declined because we haven't followed that process. So that's the risk we take with advancing the project ahead of the obligation by the federal agencies. So we are pursuing reimbursement from the federal agencies. We just have to follow that process in order to be eligible for that reimbursement.
I've heard of instances of the feds clawing back funds on agencies that didn't follow the process or stepped outside of the reimbursement process, the public assistance grant process. And several years later, feds want their money back.
Looks like we have one just popped up for Q&A.
Yeah. The 37 should be extended east from 80 just north of American Canyon Road to 680 just south of Gold Hill Road to provide an alternative to Red Top Road if that gets close. Thank you. So great comment. That's part of the regional, that would be a regional transportation type project. So we'll forward that to the appropriate agencies.
Did we cover all the chat, Bill? I think we did.
Chat is covered. I see no Q&A at this time.
Okay. I sent Repreet my contact info. We can go out. It'd be nice to know just where not to point it. We can go out and take a look at the light, but if we knew just the side yard or whatever where it should point, that'd be helpful. We'll take care of that.
I just want to say thank you. Was that 37 questions and 2 chats and And those questions were so comprehensive and so detailed. We have a commissioner, George Kennedy. Did you have a question? Oh, you were just saying hi?
No, I was going to echo what you said. It was very polite, great questions. People want to be informed, and hopefully, the city continues to keep everybody informed on this and the grants, other grants that may be available. Searching those things as well. And the only other thing I'll say is talk to our Assemblywoman, Lori Wilson, about state help. I would say Supervisor Brown, since it's county, and then of course Garamendi being our congressperson who really has the most direct line to FEMA and getting this solved, because it doesn't seem like they, especially John hasn't done. We haven't heard anything about the congressman working on this or trying to expedite over the last 2.5 years. So.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I added that on my to-do list as well. So, Jason, thank you for this. Like that was just so informative. So can you, and maybe it's going in the chat, I just want to make sure that people have your email address again. And thank you. That was so generous for you to do that. And I promise you, this is a district that will email you.
I entertain it. This workshop is recorded, so they can always go back to the slides. I'm also going to post these slides, I think, on the actually I will on the website, the project website, so it'll be available there. And then we'll look at other ways to get the contact information out there.
Okay. And then I know there was some follow-up questions, especially surrounding emergency response and that type of thing. And you may not have decided already. Would you be doing like a phase 2 of this informational webinar, or just adding it to the Q&A, those outstanding, somewhere on the project site?
Yeah, so I haven't really discussed that with Sanjay and with you, council members. So maybe we can come up with a plan. I wouldn't be opposed to doing both, as far as putting it on the website, but then also doing another meeting, like maybe in 3 months, or just the progress meetings in this style. I agree. I think this was extremely productive. It was not a lot of demeaning or bashing type questions or statements, and that's what makes things very productive.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about it. But I definitely saw a lot of hand claps that that this was the preferred way to go. I also think that this being a virtual, so that we could all be at home or at work or what have you, and just pausing for this hour. This is great. Any final thoughts?
Well, as you mentioned, we are meeting with Lori Wilson, the Assembly member, on Monday. We also have Public Works also have a 20 minutes time scheduled, and we'll bring it up. Same issue again, just to make sure that she gets from everybody. She gets to hear from everybody that hey, this is one of the important project that we are pursuing.
For sure. Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone. This is going to be loaded in the next week or so?
Yeah, Jason, we can take this and put this up on the Lopes website along with the other documents. It's easy enough to load up.
Yep.
Yes, madam, we can do that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Well, for everyone, good night. Thank you for joining us here today for that Lopes Road update. Thank you again to Daniel. Hopefully, we shouted you out twice. I hope you were here. But if not, you'll see it on the replay, him and his wife. And thank you, everyone. And please share this. Bye.